Well, good evening, Martin. Thank you for doing this, man.
No worries. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Well, let's just get right into it, man.
Okay.
I'd like to welcome back to the program. Now, do you remember, Martin, that you've actually been on the show once? You were in 2018, did a brief appearance for our Black Sabbath spectacular. You gave me about 50 minutes of your time. We included on, I want to believe it was the Dio era, but it might have been the post Dio era.
Yeah. What was your total thing with that show again?
So we did 4 parts of Black Sabbath, but the first 2 parts were the original Ozzy years. Then we did the Dio years, and then we did everything else basically.
All right.
So
Cool. I'm gonna just turn you up a little there. Yeah. Excellent.
well, I have Martin Poppoff here. That's who I'm rudely not introducing here. You are the host of the History in 5 Songs podcast. You are also a fellow Pantheon podcaster, correct?
Yes, and I missed that meeting last night. I had to go to this Geddy Lee launch thing for his series on bass players, but I've been listening to the meeting today. They had like an hour 41-minute sort of update, but yes, we're all part of a pretty cool team over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to catch up on the meeting too. So that apparently we're not really doing good for our job security in the going forward here. Martin and Bakko are skipping some meetings here. You're also the host of a fun little YouTube show called The Contrarians. I don't mean to disparage it. I actually enjoy the show. It's kind of a neat little idea. As a matter of fact, when you run out of guests, just give me a call. I'll be there for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we do have quite a running panel going there, but it's a chaotic thing. It started with one specific idea, but we quickly ran out of that, and so now we've got 7 or 8 different ideas. It's kind of all over the board under the banner of the Contrarians. We've got this big team that comes from sort of our Patreon subscribers. Plus, there's 3 of us running it: Grant and Marco and myself. So
yeah, good stuff. So people check that out. You can find it on YouTube under the Contrarians. Easy enough to find, and go to Pantheon to find the 2 best shows on Pantheon: Cobras and Fire and A History in 5 Songs. But you're here today to talk about one of your few books, Kiss at 50. Now, I have to ask you because prepping for this, I didn't know what was going to happen at the last show. Obviously, you've heard. What are your thoughts on the immortal, whatever, Avatar Kiss?
yeah, that thing is looking pretty bizarre. I mean, it got scathing reviews. People were very negative about it. It looked like people were saying like the graphics look like 2000, year 2000 graphics sort of thing. They're kind of herky jerky. And then, it may turn into a something that has some use, but as it's been explained, which is not very much, it doesn't really have a lot of use. It looks like, a buddy of mine, Ralph Vieira, put up a Facebook thing. So, the banana splits, right? Picture of them with the banana splits, or Josie and the Pussycats or whatever. So right now it looks like a cartoon that's going to have, added in music, which is from what? Live shows that are already on YouTube or that they recorded or whatever. It barely matters, kind of thing, right? So maybe they find a way to make this thing useful. Maybe AI has something to do with it. Maybe the graphics get a lot better. But I went on and did a rant for Contrarians of all the different things I wish they do instead of this kind of thing. But
there's a tease.
The value of it, because right now, to me, it looks like its main competition is us just going over to YouTube and watching Kiss concerts on YouTube, right?
Yeah, and don't you think it's a little weird? I actually have a different take I want to hit you with before I forget, but don't you think it's a little weird that they're like, we're immortal now, and they do this little teaser where it's like, it doesn't matter how old we are. That's why, but they modeled this after them now. It's like, well, if we go back in time, we got to bring back Avatar Eric and our Avatar Ace and Peter, and Avatar Ace and Peter don't like Avatar Gene and Paul, so.
Yeah, you're right. They're immortal, but they're locking into the version of them at the very end. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Silly. Okay, here's what I wanted to ask you, because I'm not surprised that they do something like this, because they have a tenuous history with their fan base and some of the decisions they make. Let's just say that. I thought it was flat out kind of shitty and mean that they did this. Like, I watched the video a couple times, from people fan filming it at Madison Square Garden. You didn't even have time to collect your emotions, man. I've been a fan for 40 plus years. I'm sitting there. It's emotional. This is the last Kiss concert. ever again. And you're like, hey, just so you know, people, we're cartoons now. Yeah. It seemed like a kick to the nuts to the fan base instead of like aren't you pumped about this? And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's weird putting at the end, the chill down, the leaving, and it's to God Gave Rock and Roll To, which is the chill down song.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody's shuffling out, we're leaving, it's over. You're right, your emotions are all over the place, sort of thing. It's not the kind of thing you announce at the end, right? You wait a little while, or maybe you say something, maybe not at the beginning, but yeah, you wait a week or a month or something, right?
And the people that hung around to watch this ended up not getting that gold ticket they were handing out the door on the way out. Oh, it's just a double screw job by these guys. But you know what? That's enough of the negativity. Thank you for delving into that. Let's get into the book a little bit. Now, you've done these Bands at 50 books before. This is the first one I've read. I got a question because I'm a guy who's read. There's a glut of Kiss books out there. The ones that the band members themselves have written, plus, you know the books I'm talking about. As you're approaching this, Gene and Paul aren't going to give you anything new. Not that I don't know how close you were to talking to anybody, but how are you approaching this as a story from a couple of things? How do you offer something that I haven't already read before? I can tell you a couple of things from the book that I got that were nice for me. But so that's one aspect. Going into it, a lot of people who get this book already have 20 Kiss books they've read. How do you make it fresh for them? And then how do you get something new from the story? Who do you talk to?
It's a very good question. So number one, this is a concept that the publisher had. And I've done a lot of books, but this at 50 thing, technically it's only the second at 50, although I did a Bowie at 75.
Okay. Maybe that's not what I'm thinking of. But
there are other ones as well. So I did AC/DC at 50. I've got a Van Halen at 50 coming out. So this is a very clear concept. So it's different than anything that's ever been written by Kiss before. But having said that, all of those great books of Kiss scholarship, like this isn't going to hold a candle to those, basically. It is the idea is a very straight and strict idea. It's like we're going to chronologically go through 50 career milestones, right? So you're getting this concept. It's almost like a super long magazine article, right?
Okay.
Now you are getting a couple extra things, I think. One is because we are including every studio album in it and every, I think, most significant live albums or whatever. You are getting a lot of my opinion as a Kiss fan. So you are getting some reviewiness as well. And then I think the last thing you're getting is the concept of getting a Kiss book from outside of the camp. And it's not an indie book. Like, it's with a big reputable publisher who's going to do a really nice design job on this. So I think you actually get one of the better Kiss coffee table books out of it. But on the scholarship end, I will absolutely cede terrain to, every other Kiss book that goes into like the details so much. I did not have the space to go into the detail. In fact, the hardest thing about this book was keeping the word count down to what I had to have it at. So that's why the sentences are pretty chock full of information and diamond hard sort of thing. Like, it was a polishing process to get those entries down to the word counts that they're supposed to be. So yeah, you're not going to see that. You're going to see a perspective from me, and you're going to get this kind of neat concept, but you're not going to get oodles of scholarship.
It is a beautiful package. It's very well done for anybody that wants to see another peek of it. It's hardcover. Got a nice little wrap on it as well. You got a nice little gloss printing there. I'm a printer by trade, Martin. So that little UV coat there, or that's maybe, I don't know, whatever. It is a nice touch. I can tell you this though, one thing that this book does more than Gene and Paul's book does. You cover Vinnie Vincent more than they did. I think Gene dedicated an entire 2 paragraphs in his book, and Paul maybe 1.5. I don't know. It's so you get a little more here.
Yeah, and I think I was pretty kind on Ace as well. And there's some quoting of Ace because he's the guy I've interviewed the most out of the band over the years. But no, that's the other thing about these books that I like. They are not meant to be interview intensive, and there's really no room for interview stuff because interview stuff chews up a lot of word count, and
Yeah.
it's often not that interesting. I mean, if you literally are not editing it down or whatever. But like the Bowie one is basically a no interview book, and that's at 75, and that's a big, massive plush one. But yeah, so that's kind of what you get with it.
A lot of great pictures too. I know what a hassle it can be getting to get photo releases. A lot of photos I haven't seen. Tell us a little bit about getting that collection of pictures. How much of an emphasis was to find things that are new, and then was it a pain in the ass to get like the rights to some of these?
Yeah. So that's the beautiful part about working with this publisher. Dennis Pernew, my editor over there, is a big music guy himself, and he prides himself on doing that job really well. He's thoughtful. He even gets a little involved in the picking of the career highlights, because he's thinking from a point of view, what can I get good pictures of? So yeah, they're all logical. They're a good picture to have in that place. He's looking for something that ultimately fits. We don't overpack it. It's just, the layouts are still, meant to be nice. So they take care of that whole thing. I provide some things from my personal collection, and that's about it. And I know some photographers as well, and I'll throw those names over to Dennis. But he basically, they've done many, many big, beautiful plush music books. They have a whole situation set up with the agencies. They deal with 3 or 4 different agencies. So I don't see any of that hassle, but they've got a budget set out for it and stuff. And, frankly, it's all my part of the budget is worked into it as well. So that, had they not had to spend on all this, maybe I would have been paid more or whatever. But that's not the point. The point is it's all stratified. It's all worked out. They've got these budgets. They've got these deals with the agencies. And Dennis does a gorgeous job of going to get those pictures.
And yeah, well, kudos to them then, because it does look amazing. So do you get to kind of proof a final copy then and say, like, I don't like this, or I want to change that, or as far as layout page to page, or are they no, Martin, no?
That's the other amazing thing about working with Dennis and the team, and different layout people all the time, is I always just absolutely love the layouts. There's very little I'm ever complaining about with the layouts. I do have to be very careful with checking the consistency of headings and what's in the captions. Like if Dennis goes and writes some captions, sometimes they might be in a different format of venue, date, how do we do the state, spell it out, not spell it out, period at the end, all that kind of stuff, right? So I do definitely proof it along the way. There's like a word editing proof, and then there's, once it's a laid out proof, and then they tell you at that point, don't change too much, right? And luckily I never have to. I mean, it always just looks so gorgeous. It's literally just kind of looking for punctuation inconsistencies and things.
And it's doing very well. I see it's already on its second printing, correct?
Yeah, it might be third printing at this point. Or maybe it is just second printing. But yeah, I had some problems with running out, because I'd say more than half of my income every year is being a mail order guy of my own books. So every week I got a supply of all my own books at martinpoppoff.com. I buy them all from the publishers. I've got deals to get them, at a good price, so there's some margin in there. I sign them, ship them all out from here. So that's a main part of my hours and my pay in any given year is just being a mail order guy of my own. I've done about 120 books, and I'd say 95 of them are in print.
Okay.
And basically I've got a supply of everything. So.
And you're still in Canada?
Yep.
The shipping costs got to be crushing you. I suppose you pass it on to the person buying it, right?
I have a whole situation set up where I can use U.S. media mail rates. So
really,
my shipping cost is actually it's all built into the price too. Anyway, it looks more expensive almost for anything that it might be on Amazon or whatever. But I am signing it and stuff too. And if you get a couple things at the same time, it works out better. But anyways, and actually a lot of them are from the UK, so maybe a lot of things are the same through me or less through me. But my postage cost to anywhere in the States is cheaper than my postage cost to pretty much anywhere in Canada.
Wow.
And my mailing house does a great job of having good deals worked out with overseas as well, so some of that looks pretty good too.
Well, as someone who's shipped a product from Minnesota, which I don't know if you know, is right there. It's Minnesota, Canada. It has been pretty astronomical for like a less than a 1 pound package.
in the old days, I used to feel really bad. Like I remember, my good buddy Chip Ruggieri in the PR company that I've dealt with for 30 years. One of the last things that we ever did any physical on, I remember receiving a copy of Joe Perry's biography, right? Mm-hmm. Or autobiography. And it was $28 postage. So the States basically treats Canada as just an overseas country, right?
Wow. Hey, on that, did you hear there was that car that exploded on the bridge connecting the United States and Canada, and it actually had a Kiss tie to it. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did hear that. I heard there's still some mystery about that, but I heard they were on their way to see the Kiss concert in Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto Rock City, baby.
Yeah, well, Toronto didn't rock city this time because Paul got sick.
Right, no. I should point out, I'm making light just of the connection, not the actual event. We talked about it more on our show for anybody that doesn't get the humor there. I wasn't taking a cheap shot at, because it is still tragic, but it was a weird...
Was it a medical emergency? Like they think he might have got a heart attack or something, or was it a
I have not heard any of the details. I honestly, the way it's being portrayed down here, Martin, and I'm not saying that they've said this as fact, but it's definitely being portrayed as like reckless driving, trying to impress a girl with an expensive car. So I don't know.
It goes so fast and through the air. It's almost like foot to down to the gas because of a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
Right?
If for anybody out there that does know, I don't know. So I'm just giving my overall vibe on the thing. I'm not trying to state fact here. Let's talking about Kiss a little bit. Do you have a Kiss collection of sorts?
Well, I have a sad story about a lot of that. Like over the years, I had 11,000 albums once, right? I'm down to 5,000. Because people come over, I've got all sorts of buddies in Toronto that come over and beg to buy things off me, right? And I get things signed, and so over time, and I get record stores chipping away at my stock too, right? Like what I own. I still have 18,000 CDs, but I've got 5,000 records. So at one point, it's like, and then Spotify happened, right? So Spotify has dented my head in terms of like trying to have a more Zen, evolved idea of, do I really need to own things anymore, right? So and then one of the last thing that happens is you cross that barrier where you say, okay, I have every studio album by this band. I will allow it to be broken up, and then it gets broken, and then the floodgates are open, and then so now I don't own a single copy of Destroyer anymore. For example, like I do all these shows with Pete Pardo every Saturday morning and all our Friday morning and all these contrarian shows. And I'm constantly horrified when I go to my records and go, I don't own a copy of Sad Wings of Destiny anymore. It's like, how did I let both? And then, you play that game. It's like, well, I have it on CD. Okay. You can have my LP, right? And then all of a sudden they're both gone. Right. So yes, I mean, I have a bunch of, I took these out in case I had to refer them to or whatever. Here's some Kiss albums. I also put things in the back, and I brought out, a pile of CDs just in case, I had to refer to them or whatever, because I know at one point you asked me to do a ranking.
Don't give it away, Martin. People at home are cheating now.
So yes, I mean, I have a collection, and I've got all sorts of cool things, and I got a bunch of signed stuff and all that. But it's I no longer, by almost every band, have every studio album even anymore of every band.
I can relate to what you're getting at, where you kind of lose track of even what happened to some of them, because I have a collection that doesn't even touch the numbers you're saying. I have about 500 vinyl albums, and I think in the neighborhood of 1,500 CDs. And sometimes I go to look for one, I'm like, did I get rid of that? But I'm a recovered Kiss collector. I actually had like a big Kiss room in my house with all my little stuff. Most of it's in tubs. For about 3 years now, I've been debating on how I'm going to sell these things. But I was just curious if you had. So it's for you. It's really just about the music. You don't have a lot of their. How far back do you go with Kiss? When did you get into them?
Well, that's the interesting thing. So what I like about my relationship with Kiss is I got the debut album as a new release.
Wow.
So I've been with them since.
You're super old, man. Wow.
Yeah, I'm 60. And the other band I always consider, like I put with Kiss.
Let's do some math here. So you were like 6 years old, 7 years old when that came out?
11.
Really? You're 60?
Yep. Yeah, born in 63, right? So now it's 2023.
Did you pick it out as an 11-year-old?
74, I was 11, right?
Okay.
Well, Mr. Me with 120 music books, you might guess that I was a crazy, abnormal music fan, right? So at 74, I was already 2 years into really knowing a lot. Like having all sorts of Deep Purple and Zeppelin and Sabbath and Nazareth and BTO. So I kind of started more like 9 years old, right? But by 11, I can't say I was like a massive, knowledgeable music fan. But by 13, we were nuts. Me and a couple buddies in town. We were crazy.
That's the zone when you hit 13, baby.
Yeah, and it was all, and your sources of information were literally the Holy Trinity, Hit Parade or Cream and Circus, right? Plus the little radio, and we had 5 record stores in our town of 10,000 people. I mean, we had a lot of record stores, and then by the time I'm in junior high, I'm working at those record stores, running those record departments and stuff. So yeah, I'm a music nut, right? But to finish that thought, so the other band that I associate with Kiss is the Rolling Stones, because they've been around exactly as long as my entire life, right?
Okay.
It's sort of like having Queen Elizabeth around your whole life, right? But yeah, Kiss is the one I remember distinctly. It's the only band, like the earliest band, where I've been there since the first album as a new release. Well, Rush too. Rush at the same time.
You're a fellow Canadians, Rush. So.
Yes, so that's 74 also as well, right? So definitely, actually, those two bands are, because BTO, I don't recall, like BTO goes back a little further, but I don't recall really saying, here's the first album and it's brand new out and I'm buying it at 9 years old. No, that didn't happen. But Kiss, it happened that way.
What was your first Kiss show?
Well, so I'm coming from a small town, so I didn't see a lot of concerts kind of ever, because I'm not a big concert guy, but I didn't really get even semi-regular until I was at university. But the funny thing happened, Kiss is one of the second or third shows I ever, first big show I ever saw was we drove to, so I'm from Trail, BC, which is just over the border, 2 hours from Spokane, Washington. So my first big
on the west.
Yes, my first big concert was Ted Nugent, Rex, and Bebop Deluxe on the Free For All tour. But we did one of these family vacations across Canada and the States in the camper van, and you'd stay in the hotel or the camper. But we just on the spur of the moment happened to be in Montreal, 1977, and it was Kiss on the Love Gun tour with Cheap Trick supporting, and I saw that. So that was my first. And then I don't think I saw them again until 96.
Okay. Wow. So what was the last show then?
I might have only seen them those 2 times. I'm not sure I've ever seen them past 96. I think I have once, but I cannot be sure. Yeah, people are always amazed that, I haven't seen Rush more than, like Rush, people ask me, I've written 6 Rush books, right? And I literally don't know if I've seen Rush 3 times or 4 times. So I don't know the exact number, and it's definitely not more than 5. So,
I'm torn, because you can be an author and kind of report on things and tell a story without ever, I mean, a lot of it is just doing it without direct knowledge, right? But the idea that you would write more music books about a band than the number of times you've seen them. I mean, how many Kiss books have you written?
This is the first one. This is the first.
I thought there was one other one at least.
No,
I'm thinking of Black Sabbath. You've done a handful of them?
Yes, I've done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 Sabbath books.
How many times have you seen them live?
That would be, so saw them on the Mob Rules tour.
Nice.
And never saw them again until, I think I saw them in a small clubby sort of thing with Tony Martin. I've seen them, and then I saw Heaven and Hell once or twice. I've seen Black Sabbath once or twice in later years.
Okay.
And I got to, those are some of my fondest memories because I was interviewing them at the show and stuff like that, right? So that was always cool.
And isn't there a picture in the Kiss at 50 book of you at the Monster release party?
Yes, that is a really cool story. So yeah, I got to go to that label guy, Dave McMillan. I thank him to this day for inviting me to that. But that was amazing. Got a few things signed, and that's in the intro to the book as well. And picture Gene putting his glasses on me and all that. I kept looking at that picture, going, people are going to think I wore sunglasses to this stupid thing. But no, they're Gene's glasses, right? Anyways. But yeah, got to chat with all the guys and got some things signed, and it was probably no more than, I don't know, 30 people in this room, free beer, all that kind of stuff, right? It was amazing. It was so cool.
Very awesome. What about, can you do an impression of any of the members of the band?
Oh, man. Irvin asked that one before, but let's see if we can do Curly. I don't know, Martin.
Yeah, that's a solid ace.
No, I don't know. I just played what's off the top of my head.
All right. Well, before we get into the what I've asked you to do, I want to remind everybody that the book is called Kiss It 50. If you know where you can buy books, which is Amazon, basically anywhere, you can get this book there. But you can also go to martinpoppoff.com. Do I have all that right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you know what? When we're done with this next phase, I'll let you plug everything one more time, just to let everybody know where they can kind of track you down. And let's get into this. Marty Friedman recently came out with a list. He ranked all the Kiss albums, and it was as I was prepping for this interview, and I'm like, well, this might be a fun thing to do with Martin. So I shot you an email. You agreed to do it. So we are going to do, and I'll explain it for the listeners, basically all the studio albums because Marty did. I just went with the same records he included. That was my criteria. I was going to take the Alive records out. A little difficult because I think Kiss Alive especially is difficult to remove from their catalog just as kind of an off-the-cuff thing. It's too important. But since he included all of them, we did, and we include all of the solo albums as well. But beyond that, no double platinum, no You Wanted the Best, any of the other, no Kiss box sets. So I have my list prepared. Martin, do you want to give me like any leading thoughts as to like how you did this, or should we just dive in?
No. Well, okay. I'll tell you something that why I like doing these, and this is my methodology of doing these. When I have to do like my top 20 song articles that I've been doing for Goldmine, many of those, and I was even doing them without Goldmine and doing them as ebooks and stuff. So I've done like probably, and sometimes it's albums and 20 this, 20 that, 20 second albums, debut albums, favorite gold and platinum albums. So I'll just tell you my method of doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
just open a Word document, you start typing, and then you just start putting things up and above, below, up, above, and then it's filled out. It's really easy, right?
Yeah.
You just start chronologically and just pop them in, and then the next one either goes above it or below it. And you do descending order. That's what I do for all these shows that I do for Contrarians or Sea of Tranquility, or when we go on Guitar Hack. So yeah, that's basically it. And I don't know, what do you want to do? How many do you want at once and all that?
Well, if it's all right, I'll touch on what you just said. I doubt you're aware of it. For Decibel Geek, I wrote a column where they do like a thing called Kissmas in July, or at least they were doing it for a long time. I ranked every Kiss song from worst to first, and much to your methodology, I just went album by album and song by song. And every time I put a song in it, is it better than this one? Yes. Just keep going until you stop, and then go to the next one. But let's do one at a time. That way I get a chance to shout out where Marty Friedman put his at. So, well, my friend, my guest of the show, Martin, who did you have at number 20? What record did you have at number 27?
Okay, I had Peter Criss at 27.
Okay.
I think many people would do that. It's obviously a big outlier, and everybody mentions that. And then the next point is if you want to be polite about it or not, and call it a crappy outlier, or just it would have been okay if it just didn't have the Kiss name on it. Right?
I'm okay. By the way, we do not need to be polite on this show.
Yeah, it's just not good, anyways. So it's an outlier, and it's not good.
All right. I had Sonic Boom as number 27. Wow. This is a lifeless, boring record. It is so unnecessary, and I was so pumped to hear it. New Kiss music for the first time since 98, and they put this. It doesn't even sound like it got properly mastered. or it's just. And then having to go to Walmart to get it, you really, it was just like another kick to the nuts from those guys. But
okay.
And Marty Friedman had Crazy Nights at number 27. So what about number 26? What do you got?
I had Psycho Circus. I thought it was short. It wasn't very good. I didn't like the songs. I kind of liked You Wanted the Best. I like
you and I might be the only people that can say that. I hear that song get shit on all the time. I think it's one of the standout tracks.
It's great, but there's worse ones on it. So I just found it a huge disappointment. And it's a little bit like this thing that if you make simple music, you're trying to make something based on the 70s. It's like the Stooges thing. You can't win if you make a Stooges record in the year 2010 or whatever. Right? There's no way of doing that properly. So 26.
I had Monster at 26. Monster and Sonic Boom for me are very similar. To me, like I almost never gave Monster a chance after I bought it because they used the Monster Energy logo. The cover looked like one of those truck stop greatest hits CDs. Like the art department just phoned this one in, but I do think there's better songs on there than Sonic Boom, so it gets a slight edge. Okay. And Marty Friedman had Peter, the 78 solo album, just one slot higher than you.
Okay. 25, I had Unmasked, which just, it's okay. It doesn't, I maybe could have put it a little higher. I'm a little fonder on it these days. But didn't like the production, didn't like the songs. Shocked it was so poppy.
And I'll mention this too after we're done, Martin. Before this episode comes out, I'll do the math and I'll do because an algorithm that kind of give an aggregated score between the three of us. I haven't asked Marty permission. I'm just going to do it, and then we'll re-rank it. And I'll throw that here at the end of the episode. But I'm going to need some time. I won't be able to do it in my head as we go. I had Asylum at number 25 we're on. I've never liked this record. I mean, I liked it for a little bit when it came out, but I was deep in the throes of like Kiss fandom at when this record came out. I think I was 14 when it came out, and I was just like, everything they do is great. Nothing sucks. They're the best band ever. That it really has not aged well. I think there's some really good stuff from Bruce on here. I just don't think it's recorded very well, and I don't think the songs are good.
We're going to disagree on a lot of this, I think.
Yeah, I could tell you from the Unmasked one we're going to too. And just real quick, Marty Friedman had Monster at 25.
I'll go Crazy Nights for 24. I just did not like the recording of this. It was noisy. It was like really bad hair metal, rehashed sort of hair metal. I thought they kind of phoned it in. I liked that Kiss was operating in the hair metal space, but I think they did a better job earlier in the hair metal space than later.
Right on. Martin, we have our first exact same pick. I had Crazy Nights at 24, and I could elaborate more on what you're saying. It's really just a bunch of bad Paul songs and a couple standout tracks. So,
okay.
And the production, Marty Friedman had Alive 3. He's not a big fan of Alive 3.
Okay. All right, 24. 23. I had Hot in the Shade. Which I feel like is a slight improvement on Crazy Nights. It's longer. We're in the CD age. They put a little more value into it. The recording's a little better, but I still think it's just a follower of hair metal albums and not a leader.
I like that record more than a lot of people, but you know what? I'll wait till I get to it on my list. I have Peter's 78 solo record. The one thing I'll disagree with, I thought I actually had this below Crazy Nights, but I think I'm more likely to listen to this record than I am Crazy Nights at this point in my life. I like that record. I think it's a well-done record. It's one of the, to quote Paul Stanley, it's a good record. It's just not a good Kiss record. I do enjoy it for what it's done. It's definitely the best thing Peter's ever done outside of Kiss. Well, you know what I mean, as a standalone. But yeah, it's still, as much as I enjoy it, maybe I'll preface by this. The first three that I mentioned are the only three that I don't like. I can tolerate and like all the records from this point on to a certain extent. But and Marty Friedman had Carnival of Souls at 23. So what do you got at 22, Martin?
Gene Simmons, which is, it's a fun, entertaining album. It's all right.
That's the way to go.
It's just got too many guest stars and too many extra sounds on it. It reminds me of a little bit of what I don't like about my favorite Alice Cooper album, ironically, but what I don't like about Welcome to My Nightmare. It just feels like a little bit too much production going on and not like a band album.
I had Alive 3. As much as I wanted it at the time, it's not a record I go back to. I don't have... I think that one of the beauty... First of all, I think the first Kiss Alive has that just instant connection. The songs sound better than they do on any of the records that they're on, and it's just a well-produced, iconic album. Alive 3, it sounds great. Live, not live, I don't know. I just don't need to go hear that as much. So, and then... Marty Friedman had Lick It Up at 22, which is a shame to put that low. But anyway.
Okay. For number 21, I had music from The Elder. I just never bought into the whole concept thing. Don't like the album cover. I'm just super distracted by the fact that it's a story situation. Yeah. It's got a few heavy songs here and there, but it's got a lot of crappy stuff. I like the same songs everybody else likes from it, but I was pretty tuned out on Kiss at that point.
Yeah, let me ask you just a little quick side tangent on that. This album, for obvious reasons, gets kind of blamed for Kiss's downfall. I've theorized that like Dynasty was really the domino. This was just the end. You know what I mean? I remember Dynasty as a kid, people going, what the hell is this with the disco sound and stuff? And then Unmasked being kind of more of a pop album. So this came out, I don't think Creatures would have done better if they would have released it where The Elder is instead, is kind of where I'm going there. What are your thoughts there? You were someone a little bit older who had been a Kiss fan longer.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I really think... and then I do remember at the time we were all confused about, well, where is this movie, The Elder? So it's this weird kind of like, soundtrack album to a movie that doesn't exist. It was the time of the new wave of British heavy metal. There were so many way better bands and way more important bands, dragging your dollars away from you at that point. It was just manna from heaven for if you were an angry young metalhead like I was at that point. I mean, that point I'm like a super crazy music scholar fan, right?
Right.
And everything I'm buying is from the UK at that point.
Cool. I had Alive 2 here. This was the first Kiss album I ever heard. I have a huge nostalgic connection to it, but I think it sounds like freaking garbage when I listen to it now. I'm like, this is just, I don't want to, these are not the versions of the songs. Unlike Alive, there's not versions on here that I go to ahead of like the studio album. So, and Marty Friedman had Sonic Boom here. What do you got next here? I think we're at, 20?
Yeah, I have Dynasty next. It's actually not that much mellower in retrospect than really Rock and Roll Over Love Gun. They're actually pretty darn similar once you get past the distraction of the disco song or whatever and the fact that it's got a Rolling Stones cover on it. But the rest of it's kind of there. But, Kiss has never had particularly good recordings up to this point. Really, I think only Destroyer sounds good up to this point. And so it's still just regularly it's a little more correct than the Eddie Kramer records, but it still doesn't sound particularly good. But I like it a little more in retrospect than I did at the time.
Again, I'll share my thoughts as we get there. That was the first studio album as a Kiss fan I was able to buy as a new release, other than the solo albums, which I don't really consider the same. Marty and I had the exact same album here. We had Gene 1978 solo album. So I kind of feel the same way you do. And actually, Marty said would have liked more Radioactive, which I'll say too. I think it's a fun record to listen to the way you said it. And I kind of dig it. Like I said, I like everything to a certain level at this point, but it's a weird record.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 19, I had Alive 3. I'm not a big live album guy, and I didn't really know where to put the live albums in here, but it's actually a pretty good representation of this whole 80s thing. I mean, it has a good reason to exist, but, I mean, it just went right by me at the time. I didn't really care. What year is this thing? 93? Mm-hmm. So I'm loving all the grunge stuff. There's a lot of great music at this time, right? Even the last vestiges of the hair metal albums, like all the best albums are from 91, 92. kind of thing. So didn't really care. Not a big live album guy, but there's a lot of good tracks on here. So yeah, 19 Alive 3.
A fun fact, Martin, is that I believe the one item I have in my Kiss collection that Gene Simmons does not. As a printer, I was given a print sample of that CD cover printed on hemp paper. I'm pretty sure Gene does not have one of those. I don't know. Maybe he does, but this was really just to like show how like, look at how good hemp paper is. And so a weird little thing. And so they gave it to me. Psycho Circus is who I got it, or what I got at 19. So I thought it was, I at the time we didn't know the whole backstory. I mean, Bruce Fairbairn, there was on record as saying Peter played on this album. I still have the interview in the EQ magazine where he talks about that. We now know that's just a complete line of bullshit, and if the producer's out there telling it, he's just sucking from the teeth. So that's kind of tainted it for a lot of people, but musically, I enjoy it pretty much front to back. There's songs I like a lot, and there's songs they're okay. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's where I got Psycho Circus.
Okay, and Marty?
And Marty had Music from the Elder here.
Okay. All right, I had Ace Frehley next, which is a fun album, good album, but it's still sort of dumb Ace rock, right? You know, he's one thing I like to say about Kiss is that they have 4 extraordinary voices in the band and 3 good singers in the band. And Ace is the one who's another great voice, but not the best singer in the band. He's the worst, I suppose. But yeah, I like it. It's a good, fun, infectious album. But I think people rate it a little highly. So I've penalized it here just by not having the Paul one. So.
Yeah, and every now and then someone puts Paul ahead of Ace, but the consensus typically is Ace is 1, Paul 2, and then it falls from there. But I had Dynasty at number 18. Like I said, this was the first studio album released after I became a Kiss fan. And I just remember my copy of it on vinyl always skipped right at the beginning of I Was Made for Loving You, which drove me crazy. It turned out my parents had shitty stereo equipment, Martin. Anyway, Marty, I should say. Marty had Animalize here at 18. So
okay. Next, I went with Paul Stanley, which I feel like it actually sounds the most like a Kiss album, even more than Ace. But that's because Paul's singing, and we know it's slightly mellower than the Ace album, but still, man, Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun ain't that heavy, so this is not that far off. So, and I think the production's good on it.
Yeah.
I think Paul's is artistically the best of the of them all. But for years I like the Ace more because it is heavier. But now I'm gonna go with Paul.
Jeff Glicksman did that record. He did one of those late era Sabbath records like Eternal Idol or Seven Star or something like that.
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember.
All right. Music from the Elder is what I got here at number 17. A lot of people are going to be surprised, people who follow our show anyway, because I praise this record. I do think I love it from beginning to end. I love it as the concept. I think the concept is stupid as shit. I think the story is lame. It's like a poor retelling of Star Wars. But the music is good, and I enjoy it. The one song I don't like is one everybody likes, and that's Dark Light. I think that's garbage. It's plotty and shit. But unlike you, Martin, I actually really dig the cover. But I too, as a kid, was wondering where the movie was. So
yeah.
Marty had Revenge down here at number 17. So 16, where are we at here, Martin?
I went with Carnival of Souls, which I quite like. It's heavy, it's dark, it's grungy. I think Kiss navigated this stupid ruse of trying to make a grunge album pretty well. I know Gene and Paul were definitely at odds about the whole thing, but yeah, I was pleased that they tried something like this. I thought it was a pretty cool album. That's my fully signed
nice
Carnival of Souls. Yeah.
I had the Paul 78 record. Paul quickly became my favorite member of Kiss, and this was the first solo album I got of the lot. Money was tight around the Bakko household growing up, Martin. We weren't able to buy all 4 of them at once. Yeah, I don't think I heard the Peter one until the 80s, actually. But I like the Paul Stolo album. I think you kind of touched on it. I really don't have a lot more to elaborate there. It sounds like Kiss. It's pretty good stuff. So,
yeah. And Marty?
Oh, Marty had Psycho Circus there.
Okay. Next at 15, I've got Love Gun, and there's my copy signed by Ace and Ken Kelly.
Ooh, nice.
But, I've got it pretty low because the one thing I learned doing the book or was surprised is that I really knocked Love Gun and Rock and Roll Over down a fair bit. I know people like them a lot, but, man, Almost Human, Christine 16, Tomorrow and Tonight, Then She Kissed Me. There's a lot not to like on this. Shock Me's pretty cool. I Stole Your Love is amazing. Love Gun's amazing. But, yeah, it's not really that amazing an album. So I got it at number 15.
I love if you would have asked me in the 80s or earlier, Love Gun would have been a top 5 record for me. I'm with you more now. I have it higher than you, but for a different reason. It is the lowest of the original 6 record studio albums. I have Hot in the Shade here, as does Marty. So, Hot in the Shade, a bit bloated, not the greatest production, but much better songs than Crazy Nights, and I enjoy it for that.
Okay. Next, I have Sonic Boom. I am not a hater of these records. I think they navigated the idea of trying to make simple Kiss music much better than they did on Psycho Circus on both of these last albums. I think they have a lot of value. They're long. There's a lot going on. I think I have no problem with the sound because, again, you could have asked for absolute perfect, heavy metal Sonics, but again, I think they're going for this thing to try have a little bit of a 70s vibe. So Sonic Boom, 14 for me.
What do you think of the cover?
That's pretty crap.
Yeah. All right, at least we agree on that. Yeah. I have Revenge here. Revenge, another record that I think further back in time I would have ranked higher. We did an episode just focusing on this album, and it kind of dawned on me then that I still like the record, but it's not as good as I thought it was. I mean, there's some really strong points. Unholy, probably the best non-makeup, at least Gene song, if not overall song, from the basically the non-makeup era. But Marty had Kiss Asylum here.
Okay. Next, I had Monster. Again, I just think they offered good value on this. It's got some good songs. It's got some melody on it. It's slightly different than Sonic Boom. I think Sonic Boom has a little bit of that garage vibe, and this has a little more of a stadium vibe. The album cover's pretty good. It's got the reticulated thing going on, right?
That's a horrible album cover, Martin. Come on. It might as well just say generic Get Best of Kiss or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that's a Monster Energy drink logo. They stole the logo.
Yeah, and the title's not great either.
No.
I think they did a pretty. I almost feel like I like these because I hated Psycho Circus so much.
Okay.
And I'm glad they figured out a way to just go back to the roots, but offer new music and keep it fairly interesting. So there you go.
How many copies of the Monster book do you own?
The Monster book. What's the
okay. Did you not Kiss the Monster book? It's like that tall.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Oh, I haven't bought any of that stuff. So.
I thought you'd get one with the Canadian flag on it at least, but I had Animalize here. I love Animalize. Not a great record overall, but I mean, first of all, Heaven's on Fire is up there with Unholy, you know what I mean? Just one of their signature songs from the 80s. One of those kind of untouchable, instant, just grabs you, and they didn't have enough of those, I don't think. And overall, I think this is a fun record. Everybody likes to shit on Burn Bitch Burn, but I enjoy it. It's the only time capsule we have of Mark St. John, and I would have actually liked, even though maybe he wasn't the best fit for the band, I would have liked at least one more record to kind of see him with like a year or two under the belt with the band. So, and right. Marty had Dynasty here.
Okay, all right. At number 12, I had Rock and Roll Over because, again, I was. This is one that went down a little for me. I don't like the production very much. It's not very groovy, with things like Love 'Em, Leave 'Em on it. I don't think Mr. Speed's very good.
Ooh.
Hard Luck Woman, don't really like. Making Love's amazing. Baby Driver's amazing. I Want You's amazing. That's basically it for amazing on this. It's 3 songs, right?
You put Baby Driver ahead of Mr. Speed, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Baby Driver, I remember as kids, we thought that was her flat-out heavy metal song. We think it's pretty heavy. I mean, Mr. Speed is just like one of their dopey boogie rock songs.
But it's got that unique guitar. I mean, that guitar riff is one of the most unique things in Kiss's music. You know.
Yeah, cool, yeah. So it's almost like boy band music, these 2 records. I don't know, for some reason I just got it in for Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun these days.
I think it's Eddie Kramer you have a problem with.
Yeah, I think so too. Heaven, very noisy album.
Okay, Carnival of Souls is what I put here. I love this record. I think it's a great album. I think it's a perfect follow-up for Revenge. I think it's better than Revenge. Obviously, I have it higher. And I think it really would have been I would have liked to seen a proper release. You know what I mean? Toby writes on the record saying this is the final mix and master. So he says it wasn't kind of rushed out sound-wise, but, you know, art-wise, packaging-wise. They were out there on that Kiss convention tour with all these different artwork models for the cover that they ended up never using. They just used this generic stretched out picture of them in front of a tiny 4-pad mixer for some reason. I don't know. I dig it. I mean, Childhood's End, it opens up with it. It's just amazing. So I don't know.
Cool. All right.
Oh, Marty had Creatures of the Night.
Okay. All right. Next, I'm going number 11, Dress to Kill. Polite recording, but basically a correct recording. You know, tight, very kind of uptight academic album. But it's got Rock and Roll All Night on, of course. But Rock Bottom's amazing on here. Come On and Love Me, we always like that. There's the weird massaging of electric and acoustic into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were always on board. I mean, we as kids, I remember basically liking those first 3 albums about the same.
Okay. I like that record a lot too. I had Ace's 78 solo album here. I do think it's the best of the 4. I didn't think so when they all came out. I thought there was too much. I just wasn't ready for the eclecticness of what Ace did here. The problem with this record is that, like, Eddie Kramer convinced Ace to do New York Groove because Ace was not down with it. And that became this huge hit. And then Ace, because he's not a very, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with a nice way to not call him stupid. He's been trying to replicate that ever since. With Do Ya, he's got the 2 Origins records, which are largely garbage. He's done a lot of covers, Fox on the Run, some of them better than others, but, you know, just give it up. You don't have to do a cover all the time, and you definitely didn't need to do those 2 Origins records. But all that spawned because of this, and he loves taking credit for it now, but he hated the idea at the time. I think it's an iconic classic song. But it's a great record. Anytime someone tries to tell me that the latest thing Ace released is really good, I ask them to listen to the very first 5 seconds of Speeding Back to My Baby, and then tell me you still feel that way, because I just think, you know, come on, man. This guy's been mailing it in for basically ever since this record, I think. But I think it's a great album. And Marty had Unmasked.
Okay. I'll go with Lick It Up next. I liked that they were in on the ground floor on the hair metal thing. The title track is a super infectious, completely simple, just great, glorious example of that Eagles, Tom Petty, Billy Joel, Beatles look at, how do we write the most amazing song, even though it's going to be really simple sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great one for that. All Hell's Breaking Loose was super infectious at the time as well. So it's just good to see them embrace this hair metal thing and do a pretty good job of it right out of the gates.
No, it sounds like I've got more familiarity. Easier for me to say. Sounds like I've seen them live more than you. Lick It Up and Heaven's on Fire do not come across live, at least the way they play it. They almost need to be this slick studio polish thing to hit you right.
What? Yep.
I have Love Gun at number 10. It's the least favorite of the first 6 studio albums, and I don't know. Honestly, I agree with pretty much everything you said about it, and I think Then She Kissed Me is stupid. And Marty had Paul 78. Now, actually, Marty had Ace 78 and Paul 78 tied at number 9. I split the tie just on saying, generally speaking, people like Ace is better than Paul, so I put Paul at 10. And spoiler alert, Ace will be at 9. But anyway.
Okay, number 9, I had Creatures of the Night. I thought they did a really good job with this. I was glad the concept album thing was gone. The recording is, we're into this weird sort of zone that Kiss will have for a lot of years where the drumming is kind of boxy and loud, but not powerful. They've got a strange production ethic.
I got to ask you to push button. Did you just say the drumming on this record isn't powerful?
Is powerful?
Isn't or is? Were you saying is? Did I hear you wrong?
Well, okay. So it's more powerful than on Lick It Up and Animalize and Asylum and Hot in the Shade. Crazy Nights. Sorry, Crazy Nights. But even though it's fairly loud in the mix on this album, and they're quote unquote going for that boomy Bonham sound or whatever, it still has this kind of boxy quality. Where I don't like the frequencies on any of the drums.
Okay,
right? It's got some volume to it, but no, I like this. I like this album. It's heavy. I think the songs are pretty good. I Love It Loud's a great anthem. Creatures of the Night is an amazing technical, speed metal rocker. The first time they've ever done something that technical. Keep Me Coming's a good party one. Saint and Sinner's pretty good too. War Machine's good. So this was a good solid album, and I've got it in the top 10. I got it number 9. So
we have our second match. I have Creatures of the Night at number 9 as well, Martin. And like I said, Marty has it at as Ace 78 at number 9, as I split the tie. But I don't have a whole lot more to add to that. I disagree with you on the drum take a little bit. I think it's one of the most iconic and unique sounding drum recordings. They really dove into it and spent time with it. And I don't know if you know the story behind it, but the methodology behind it really is something that draws me in, because I'm a guy who likes to, when I record and do stuff, I like to mess around and try things kind of outside the box, kind of in the DIY aspect of like dropping a mic down an elevator shaft. I absolutely love, and I think the results panned out, and they've never matched it since. But it doesn't have to be that drum sound. But this record to me is almost defined by its drum sound. But what do you got at 8?
I've got Kiss, the debut, at number 8. I think it's just all full of iconic songs. It was pretty heavy at the time. I often liken, I often say that this early Kiss music doesn't sound like any other band, but if you're going to pick a couple of bands that it might sound a little bit like, it's like Heavy BTO or Heavy Slade, because it's very chordal. It's not very riffy. But anyways, pretty heavy album for 1974. I remember that as a kid feeling that way. With the likes of Deuce and Black Diamond. Black Diamond's kind of the epic on it, right? Cold Gin's pretty heavy. Firehouse, not so much. Strutter's kind of heavy. Strutter's this one I always bring up. I have this concept. I did a podcast episode about this, about the A-B switch between boogie and metal riffs that you got out of American bands. As they invented metal years later than Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath truly invented metal. So Strutter's one of those funny ones like that, where you've got this dopey boogie rock verse, and then you've got a modern heavy metal chorus. And Kiss is a funny band that does that a little bit. Cat Scratch Fever does that as well. You've got a dopey boogie rock verse and a heavy metal chorus, same kind of thing. So pretty solid album, number 8.
I like that take about the dopey boogie rock thing. I'm gonna keep that in the burner there. Let me ask you. I don't know if you remember, but the copy you bought, did it have Kissin' Time on it? Did you get a in so early that you got it before that was on there, or?
Yes, it was on there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have been a Canadian copy, and I don't even remember this whole thing about it never being there. It was always a pretty big anthem, and I don't even remember being totally aware that it was a cover as a kid.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it actually fits in there as a pretty heavy song. It's a heavy song.
I dig it, man. I think
this is no Then She Kissed Me sort of thing. It absolutely fits on the album as a heavy. The verse of that basically, like I say, sounds like heavy Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yeah, all right. I had Unmasked at number 8. I think this is, man, people have such a hard time, I think, with the polish and the poppiness of this. I listen to these songs, and I think, they're just well written, well performed songs. Honestly, the 3 Ace songs and Shandy are the weak spots throughout this thing. But, you talk about You're All That I Want, Tomorrow, Is That You is a great cover. Another one that I didn't really know was a cover at the time, What Makes the World Go Round. I play this record on a pretty regular basis to this day, and I love the cover. I think it's amazing. I think it was perfect, and I got the big poster on the inside, and I don't know. People, I know I'm not the only one who likes it, but a lot of people shit on it. It's like with the Elder and stuff like that. I think this is a great record. Marty had Dressed to Kill at number 8.
Okay. Next, I have number 7. I have Asylum, and it's funny. We could almost do a whole show on how people hear productions differently. I think you said you can't stand the sound of this.
It's flat.
I think this is the best sounding album. I think it's the best album they ever made from that era. I think they all sound flat except for this one. So it's funny how I've noticed this with a lot of people who know a lot about music. You could talk about 2 albums and the production, and they'll have adjectives that are just like the polar opposites of each other. It's really weird. But no, I like the songs. I like Heaven's on Fire a lot on here. Thrills in the Night I really like.
Yeah, that's
I've
Animalized.
Had Enough Into the Fire.
You pulled up the wrong playlist there.
Hang on. What am I at here?
Asylum. Asylum.
Did I say Animalize?
You said Asylum. You held up Asylum, but you were going off of Animalized tracks.
Sorry. Okay. So hang on. That's right. So
I can fix that and edit.
King of the Mountain, I really like a lot on here. Trial by Fire. I'm shuffling.
Yeah, I know exactly what happened there. Yeah, don't worry about it.
But sound wise, I everything I said about the sound, I meant this one. I do mean, God, I always, because they both start with A and they're one word. Asylum. I've always thought this had a good full spectrum sound on it. I like the Paul songs on it. I like the melody of it. I just feel like it's moving away from that dopey, nascent, early days hair metal thing to actually making an accomplished hair metal album. So this feels like they're actually semi-smart for the middle of the hair metal era, whereas the first 2, Animalize and Lick It Up, still feel like the dopey Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot kind of thing. To me, this feels like the grown-up hair metal album of all of them.
I'll elaborate more on one of the records you just talked about because it's further up my list. Dressed to Kill is what I got here at number 7. I think you described it pretty well. I actually think the overall sound and production on this record is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it definitely pops a little cleaner than the first 2 records. And I think almost every song on here, even the dumb ones, are fun. And I think the down point on this album would probably be that Rock and Roll All Night doesn't sound that great as a studio song. The live version definitely blows us out of the water. And Marty had the self-titled debut, Kiss, at number 7. Now, before you make your next pick, I'm going to tell you, Martin, this is the first time we've come up where the albums haven't been eliminated. There's a chance that you, me, and Marty could all pick the same one at number 6. Let's see where this ends up here.
Okay, well, I went Animalize next, and that's the other reason I'm getting these confused, because I got them both together, and they come out together, and I feel like Animalize is like the slightly matured version of Lick It Up. I think Lick It Up is the excitement of being part of this new thing or starting this new thing. Maybe they didn't even know they were starting something new. They kind of were, though, because at that time you had, like I say, Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister. You eventually had Rat and Great White and Dokken, and that sort of forms the core of those early days of hair metal. And Aerosmith's Kiss is in there right like a dirty shirt. Aerosmith cleans up, but they actually don't participate as much as Kiss does. They don't look like Kiss, and they don't dress like Kiss. But to me, Heaven's on Fire is Lick It Up Part 2. I've Had Enough Into the Fire is like a heavy one, like King of the Mountain, like Creatures of the Night. So they're doing that opening, slightly technical thing. Thrills in the Night I really like a lot. While the City Sleeps, I think has a good chorus. So yeah, I'm pretty hot on that one. These ones have moved up. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I would add more 70s stuff up here, but the 70s stuff has fallen away. So 6, Animalize.
I would have had Animalize over Lick It Up 20 years ago, maybe. But Lick It Up, something happened, and I'll touch on that in a second. Marty and I both had Destroyer at number 6. Now, when I was putting this list together, I tried to do a couple things. which was like try to respect the catalog to a certain extent while also my personal taste. I don't go to Destroyer that much. I listen to it probably as much as I listen to Love Gun at this point in my life. But every time I do, I go, I get it. I mean, it's not the one that it draws me in, but man, this sounds amazing. These songs are great. There's a reason this is the iconic kind of original Kiss studio record. So I had to give it a little more respect than I think I initially did. I had it a little bit lower, but I put it back up at 6, and that's where Marty had it too.
Okay. Number 5, I had Alive 2. I should probably go back and listen to it again. I never felt like I had those misgivings about it. Mine's signed by Ace and Peter there.
Nice.
So yeah, I feel like all of those songs off of those albums that I now think are a little weaker actually do come alive, and they do sound heavier and crazier. You know, the likes of these lunch bucket songs like Ladies Room, Calling Dr. Love, Christine 16. What else? Well, Tomorrow and Tonight's there, but okay, and then the rest of it is actually Destroyer tracks and the heavier songs from Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun. But also, I love the studio side. I think this studio side is better than any of the studio sides on Love Gun or Rock and Roll Over. It's got the awesome Rocket Ride, one of the greatest Kiss songs of all time. I think Paul's All American Man is amazing on here as well. Any way you want. Throw away, but Rockin' the USA is fine. Larger Than Life is fine. But yeah, Rocket Ride and All American Man are great. So yeah, to me, this does what Kiss Alive 1 does for those later songs. Plus, it's got that great studio side. Well recorded as well, the studio side.
And I'll concede that it's not preposterous to say it's better than one of the sides of Love Gun. Rock and Roll Over, I tend to disagree with a little bit. But moving on, I have the self-titled Kiss album at number 5. This record could almost be moved further up because you have a minimum of 5 to 7 songs, minimum of 5, a high end of 7 songs that are going to be in every night that they play. I mean, it's just so many iconic songs on their debut record. They kind of knocked it out of the park, the fact that they go back to so much of it. And not a lot of bands do that. As much as a band might have a nice hit coming out of the gate, Kiss didn't. This album didn't blow up. But so much of their foundation is in the record. Their DNA is here, everything, you know. And while they didn't have the budget and they didn't have the production, I still like the way it sounds. It's just not better than the next 4 I get. And Marty Friedman had Love Gun at number 5.
Okay. My number 4 is Alive, ! This one here. And I recently did a podcast episode of History in 5 Songs with Martin Poppoff on the heaviest live albums of the 70s. And I was surprised that this almost, got up pretty high on the list because it's actually a pretty heavy live album. I think it's well recorded and super exciting and all that stuff. And it's mostly the heavier songs off of all those albums. Side 3 with Watching You, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond. That's a dark side of Kiss right there. Right? Pretty cool. 3 songs. But yeah, it's just quite good and quite heavy. Again, I just have I've never ranked these live albums in any Kiss rankings. It's kind of hard to figure out where to put these things. But there's a reason it's considered one of the great live albums of all time. And like I say, I was generally surprised at how heavy it was and how well it did in my rankings of heaviest live albums of the 70s. There was one clear winner, and it's basically the clear winner for. Well, it's actually it won. It's not as clear for the heaviest album of the 70s. It's certainly the heaviest live album of the 70s, but that's Judas Priest Unleashed in the East.
Okay. That's interesting. Let me ask you a live album question, just real quick. My personal theory is Live After Death by Iron Maiden was the last live record that mattered.
Yeah, it's true. The golden age of the double live albums is widely considered to be the late 70s, but there were a few more. Yeah. And this is their first besides Made in Japan, which is just an EP. But yeah, you're right. You had a lot of guys with their second live albums, and they were always a little bit denigrated. Your Judas Priest Live, your Worldwide Live Scorpions, your Exit Stage Left, your Blue Oyster Cult ETL Live, right, or Extraterrestrial Live. So every time these bands did a second one. It was considered a bloated, corporate, muffled sort of situation. But yeah, Maiden, at the height of their powers, giving us a double. Yeah, it was awesome.
We have our third match between you and I, Martin. I have Alive at number 4 as well. All I can say is the weird thing is that for the longest time it was always Alive 2, and then Alive was kind of like, that one's pretty good. But man, as my ears matured and I got older, I'm like, this is rock and roll. This is like when you tell somebody what rock and roll is to me, you hand them this album. And yeah, it's just I think side 3 and 4 are perfect, but the whole record basically beginning to end, there's nothing to skip. But and we almost had a match. Marty had Alive 3 here. So.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm sorry, Alive 2. I put an exclamation point and threw my. I was like, "There's no way he had Alive 3." All right. So what do you got at number 3?
Hotter Than Hell. Once you get used to the Black Sabbath Born Again recording of it, you forget about that. Just like when you're listening to a bootleg, you eventually forget, how bad it sounds, right? Kind of thing. And it's dark, it's heavy. So I like the Radical recording on it. It's got, the iconic Strange Ways solo on it, and some super heavy songs like Parasite and Got to Choose.
Mm-hmm.
All the Ways, really good. I liked Mainline as kind of a poppy one. I love Coming Home. It's kind of a Stonesy one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my favorite of the 3. I think it's just got the strongest songs. Hotter Than Hell, such a great stop-start, free, all right now sort of thing, right? So that's really cool too. Good solid album.
At number 3, I have Lick It Up. I think this is a masterpiece. It is. There really isn't a bad track on here, and it is a high mark of their entire musical catalog. With The Elder, they were trying to be this band that could do more and show more musicianship and better songwriting. I think they actually achieved those goals with Lick It Up. And the production that Michael James Jackson has on this is timeless. It doesn't have that dated sound when you go back to it. Lick It Up still sounds fresh as hell. Not for the Innocent. Man, that leading guitar solo is just amazing. Exciter. I mean, I could go on and on. All Hell's Breaking Loose. And even the dumb songs at the end, Dance All Over Your Face and On the Eighth Day, I think are fucking just some of the best things they did during the 80s. I love this record. I almost wanted to put it number 1, but 1 and 2 are pretty tough to beat for me on my end. But Marty had Hotter Than Hell, so nice little match for you two there. And the weird thing is, Martin, before you go here, I'm trying to figure out, without looking, what 2 records are left for you. So I'm intrigued what I'm going to get here. What's number 2 for you?
Well, this will surprise you because it was pretty low for you. I love Revenge.
Oh, boy.
I think this album is gorgeously recorded. I think it's the best sounding Kiss album they ever made, and it's kind of weird that it's Bob Ezrin because he's pretty hit and miss with productions. I don't think he ever got a good production for Alice Cooper in the
Agreed. His production with Alice Cooper is kind of like a little underwhelming.
Cardboardy, yeah. And Destroyer sounds good, but I mean, this sounds amazing. I think I did a podcast episode called "Go to Vancouver and Try Harder," where all the hair metal bands make their pilgrimage to Vancouver and make their best album that they worked super hard on. And
that's Fairbairn, right? Or
yeah, and this is kind of like that, even though they didn't go to Vancouver, but it's that era. So this fits in the whole idea of the hair metal bands looking at grunge and saying, boy, we better make a really, really good quality album if we're going to stay in our space, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Kiss stayed in their space, and they made their greatest hair metal album. I just love the pacing, the heaviness, the darkness, and then the party stuff again. Everything works on here. It's super powerful sounding. It's a lot of value with 11 tracks on it here, and they're all pretty long. They're all 4s and 5s kind of thing. So yeah, good album. Just song after song that are bangers. It's kind of the same way you described "Lick It Up," I think.
Okay, well, fair enough. Another area that we disagree, but Marty and I both have the next one the same. Rock and Roll Over. I disagree with your assessment on the production. This is a very slick, clean sounding album. Now, Bob Ezrin, to me, when he produces a record, it's a lot more about getting involved, shaping the songs, shaping the arrangement, or Eddie Kramer is kind of like, what do you want it to sound like? I'm going to slide the buttons the way you go. And both are fair ways to produce an album. It's just a different way to approach it. This is what Kiss fans think of when they talk about what they were trying to do with Sonic Boom. You know what I mean? This album, I think the songs are great. I like Mr. Speed. I like Making Love. Hard Luck Woman. Thank God Rod Stewart didn't want it. I Want You. I mean, when they did the Hot in the Shade and they suddenly went back to long shows and digging into the 70s, opening up with that just blew my fucking mind. But yeah, this album and the album cover, plus you get the little sticker inside that my sister didn't share with me like Dad said she had to. So I think it's just a perfect. It really sums up Kiss as a studio entity better than any record for this guy anyway. So,
okay,
what you got?
What
Number one for Martin Poppoff.
What did Marty have?
Oh, he had Rock and Roll Over as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Number one, I went with the boring choice, Destroyer. You know, I just can't fault it. It's their most ambitious album. It's got the most ear candy on it. Detroit Rock City is the closest thing you're going to come to a Kiss Stairway to Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Shout It Out Loud was a good rockin' song. Do You Love Me is great, even though it's a semi-cover. It's got the two, the King of the Nighttime World and God of Thunder with the clumpy beats, the clumpy Bill Ward drumming. So yeah, it's just an entertaining. Beth is kind of a throwaway. I'm not crazy about that, but I thought Sweet Pain was a good song. Great Expectations, I don't hate. I think it sounds good for a 70s album. I think it's the best sounding Kiss album. It was a magic time in Kiss history. I think I joined the Kiss Army out of the stuff that was on the inside. It's got maybe the best album cover out of all of them. It's a boring choice. I've often toggled between that and Revenge. Sometimes when I'm in a cranky mood, I will tell people Revenge is my favorite. But I think Destroy is a boring choice, but it's there for a reason. It's probably the consensus choice.
Are you much of an audiophile? Like, did you check out the 5.1 remix from Steven Wilson on that deluxe package at all?
Yeah, I did. I'm not much of an audiophile. I don't really care. My best stereo is what I have right on my desktop with, with $99 tweeters pointed right at my head and a little bit of a computer subwoofer.
Well, see, I think we're starting to realize how you hear production different. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, but that. My iPod Classic and my car stereo are all better than my home.
Gotcha. Okay. It was a cheap shot anyway, so it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, but I hear a lot of different. I hear things in a lot of different ways, but I feel like the best delivery is really good earbuds on my iPod Classic, and my car stereo is amazing. And it's in the old days we used to sell car stereos and they break down, and I used to have to install car stereos. And now all these stock stereos and all these, it's not even an industry anymore. They're amazing. Right?
Exactly. I remember I first found out about the production of Ted Templeton with Van Halen when my high school car, the speaker went out on one side. Because I put my own stereo in, and like the wires, I'm like, where's the guitar? Wait, what? This is how it's produced? I had no idea. My number one record, Martin, is Hotter Than Hell. This,
good choice.
I love it. It doesn't have quite the catalog of songs that they dip back to. The production is what it is, but I actually really enjoy the sound of this album. It's funny that you mentioned Born Again because as much as it's an apt comparison, but I love the sound of that record for almost the same reasons I like this. It just has that gnarly, almost pre-grunge garage band kind of just noisy effect to it that isn't so abrasive like some like industrial music where they take the low end out. It's just all really high end attacky stuff, but the songs on here are great. Really a spirited band. I would, as much as I love the production, I would love it if they got a remix, if they found the actual raw tracks and just started from scratch. But I don't want to lose it as it is at the same time. But
it's funny, we refer to that as a garagey sound, but the funny thing is, it almost sounds like a big bad hockey barn sound, right? And Born Again, same thing. It sounds a little bit like when you're seeing a concert in a stadium. So it's got like a large live sound at the same time. We can say it has a crappy small live sound.
No, that's a good way to put it. I mean, muddy is another term I hear for it a lot too. But All right, so in post, I will put the aggregated re-ranking. I'll do a quick rundown, but Martin, before I let you go, I'll remind the listener too. Kiss It 50, available pretty much everywhere you can buy a book. People, go ahead and plug everything you want to plug, because I know you don't just have this out there. You got your podcast, you got your video show. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, so like I say, martinpoppoff.com for all the books. I sign them, I send them out. The prices there all include shipping. And yeah, we've got the Contrarians video, YouTube channel that I think Marco said we've got 500 shows we've done now.
Nice.
But yeah, that thing's going all the time. And then I haven't missed a week on my audio podcast. I'm at 232 episodes of History in 5 Songs with Martin Poppoff. The other recent books, there's the big Who one, the Who Quadrophenia book. There's the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon book. Those are in slipcases, beautiful, beautiful productions. I've still got the Bowie. We had a Blue Oyster Cult panel book recently come out that's doing well called Dominance and Submission, where I get a panel of 12 people together, whatever, and we go through every studio album. So that's out now as well.
Well, Martin, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad to have you back on. Hopefully someday we'll have a face-to-face meeting. But to my fellow Pantheon podcaster, thank you so much for your time and a wonderful book. And you did a Black Sabbath book that I leaned on heavily on our Black Sabbath series. So I can't appreciate the work you do enough, I guess is all I'm saying. So keep it up, buddy.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right.